I am Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show.
Hey, Jimbo. I think you're on mute, buddy.
All right, well, let's try that one last time. All right. This is Jimbo Paris. Welcome again to the Jimbo Paris Show. We have Charles Free, CEO of CODE Éxitos. Again, very cool name. Let's see what it's about. Said that the second time. I was just muted for some reason. Sorry about that, everyone. All right, back again. Great. So,
hey, Jimbo, how are you, man?
Yeah, good. But let's get started here. So, specifically, who are you?
Yeah, well, Charles Fry, or when I'm in Latin America, I use Carlos a lot. So that's why the other way. My name there shows Charles or Carlos. Either one is fine. I'm 58 years old. I've been a tech entrepreneur my whole life. And currently, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO and the founder of a product development studio called CODE Éxitos. And CODE Éxitos has people and offices, design centers in the United States, Mexico, and Latin America. So, yeah, we're focused on the Americas.
Okay. And how long have you actually been in this industry?
I did my first tech startup right after I got out of the University of Michigan I finished there in 1986. I think it was 1988 when I did my first startup. So that's a long time, but I survived.
Okay. Now, your career, can you give us a bit of a brief history about that too?
Yeah, sure. In the late 1980s and the early 1990s, no one talked about being an entrepreneur. It was almost like you couldn't get a real job. Everybody expected you to go work for a company that was already established. But I was early in the technology space as a software developer, and I liked working for lots of different people. And so it almost started out like self-employment. And then as I got traction and I realized I had more work than I could do myself and I had to hire people, then you realize that it's like, wow, man, this is starting to feel like a company. And, over the years, I had a lot of good mentors, a lot of positive experiences, some tough experiences as well. And, the ventures got a little more serious and a little more successful, and I stuck at it. So, I've done startups that have been bootstrapped, credit cards and the cash I had available. I've done venture-backed startups where, big time venture capitalists are involved and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars are flying around. I've sold companies and I've bought companies and I've helped people turn around companies. So I've done a little bit of everything in the last 30 or 35 years. But my passion has always been around starting and building things from scratch. So that's my jam.
Speaking of passion, you were a biology and molecular biology major, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So why'd you get into tech?
That's a great question. And you have to kind of be in the history machine to understand it. But again, in the 1980s, when I was in the laboratory studying biochemistry or molecular biology, personal computers were just becoming available. And to be honest, they didn't do much, Jimbo. You could get a word processor and maybe a crude spreadsheet. So if you wanted it to do anything, you had to write program it yourself. And that actually always, that programming part to me was fascinating because it seemed pretty logical to me. It wasn't difficult. It was a lot simpler back then than it is today. And I discovered that what for a lot of people was really confusing and even intimidating computer technology, for me was intuitive, and I had an ability or a gift that I could explain it to people.
Mm.
And so people actually ask me, they're like, "Hey, can I pay you to help with this?" Back in those days, Jimbo, there was no you if you got a computer science degree, it was all about dealing with mainframes and big, big systems that we don't even really use that much anymore. Personal computers, you went to the store and bought one and figured it out on your own. And certainly no one was teaching entrepreneurship. It's funny, today I go back to the University of Michigan and I actually speak. They have a great program for entrepreneurs in the business school. And I go back as a speaker now to talk about entrepreneurship. I'm like, man, where was all this when I was here? I would have signed up for this. But that's a little bit about how I got started as an entrepreneur, and then I just build on it over the years.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, when it comes to the businesses you built, what was the most notable startup you've made, and why was it so notable to you?
Wow, that's like having to pick your favorite child. I don't know if that's a fair question. Um, they all had attributes that I enjoyed. I would say Code Éxitos right now, the one I'm doing
Oh,
right now, and yeah, I started this to be. This is a comment that I suppose only a career entrepreneur can make, but this is my last company. This is the last company I want to build, and I wanted to achieve two things with, well, a lot, but two primary things when I was thinking about starting Code Éxitos. One is that I wanted the company to last the rest of my career. It was the last thing I was going to do. So I don't have any outside investors. I don't plan to sell the company. I don't have any, we're not going to take it public. We want to make it last, right?
hmm.
And the other thing is I was very interested in finally being able to give back some public benefit um, through what I knew how to do best, which was commerce, commercial business. So we're a public benefit company, and we take very seriously the fact that not only do we have to honor the commitments that we make to our customers and our clients for producing fantastic software products for them, um, but we also owe our team and the communities that our teams live in the opportunity to improve their careers, make a better than average wage, and create more opportunity as we go. So those two things were very important when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, and so those are kind of at the foundation of Code Éxitos. So it makes it special and current for me.
Okay. And kind of when it comes to the best startup, again, you've already chosen it, but what is the process to sort of choosing that best startup?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've had a lot of people ask me that over the years, and for a while, I actually worked for some VCs. I helped them review business plans and talk to entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, especially early in the process. And I think probably the smartest thing that it came out of my mouth with regard to this was to tell entrepreneurs that they should be deeply passionate about what they're doing, and they would be willing to do it for the rest of their lives for free if necessary. Not be guaranteed. You may not get that big venture capital investment. You may not get that public offering. You may not have someone buy it for millions or billions of dollars, but you still need to be fulfilled personally and happy with the career you've
Mhm.
chosen. So Yeah, I would say that's the most enduring advice I've seen. And the people that really genuinely enjoy the company that they're building, um, they seem to do better in the long run. There have been periods over the years where, you know, doing a startup becomes almost like a fashion statement or a fad. And people want to cash in on the venture capital boom or the IPO boom or something like that. And I remember that I could always tell this because I'd start seeing very senior executives from big companies show up for job interviews, or they'd show up to pitch their business plan. And this man or woman might be making, a huge salary at a big company, and you look at their resume and their whole career was with big multinational companies. And I'd say, why do you want to start this company? And they'd say, well, because I'm going to get venture capital and it'll be easy, and then I'm going to, sell it. I'm going to make millions. And I'm like, but you didn't say anything about being in love with the idea. And those doing it for money is the wrong reason to start a company. You have to do it for passion. That's what it all boils down to in my book.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And sort of when we go next from passion now maybe to a budget, how much
hmm
money should someone commit in order to make sort of a commercial grade business? Or how much do they need maybe?
Well, those are two really different things. In my case, and I think my case is pretty consistent. Uh, Companies always seem to need a whole lot more money than I thought they were going to need when I planned how much I had or how much I was going to need. So the difference between what you plan to need and what you really need can be pretty different. Um, but I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. There's some guidelines, and you have to be aware of them. So, for example, if I told you I was going to build a steel mill, I was going to build a brand new steel mill, that would cost millions and millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, because I'd have to build a factory and I'd have to have all the machinery. And even
Mhm.
before I started the company, I'd have all of these fixed assets that I would need to buy. That's much different than if I said that I was going to start a talent agency and I was going to go out and be a talent agent and I was going to sign you up and get you a monster deal with Sony, for example. And you would agree, I would use my connections and my salesmanship, and I'd make money when I got you a deal, right? That doesn't take nearly as much money to get started. I have to stay alive. I have to eat. I have to take care of my family. I might have some travel expenses, buy a new suit or something like that. But it's nothing like a business that requires a lot of assets. So the specific answer to your question depends on the kind of company. But when you do your planning, at a minimum, I think you should expect that it's going to take, well, actually, I don't know if it's a minimum or not. What I tell people now is it's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much to accomplish what you want to do. And that feels about right most of the time.
Okay, maybe I didn't hone in perfectly on that question. So perhaps
Okay.
maybe instead of looking at a whole business, what about just a commercial grade application? Like
Oh,
something that,
like a piece of software.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. I didn't understand your question. All right.
Yeah, that was on
Um,
me.
yeah, I think that I like the fact that you call it a commercial grade piece of software. And I'm going to assume that you're not going to do any of the software engineering yourself, and you're going to want to have a team do it. Typically, what we're seeing today is entrepreneurs are spending anywhere from $50 to $150,000 for the building process. It depends a lot on the complexity of the software, um, whether it's a B2B application or it's a consumer application. But to get a real commercial quality product out the door, whether you're paying someone to do it or they're doing it in exchange for what they would be able to charge in the marketplace, I think anything less than about $50,000 is really, really hard to do these days. So,
Okay.
does that get a little closer to what you were asking about?
Exactly. And
hmm
kind of to
hmm
jump onto another topic, what are your thoughts on the idea of cryptocurrency? Do you think it's something good, or is it just a fad? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I just bought some more today, so I must think it's good. I voted with my wallet. Um, I think there's still a long way to go to sort out the volatility in the market. I mean, I keep a little bit of money in cryptocurrencies. I'm not an active investor from the standpoint of I don't panic and open my phone and look at the movement every day. Um, I think it's going to last, and I think it's going to be around for a long time. There are too many good reasons for it to go away. Whether Bitcoin should be $20,000 or $60,000, um, I don't think anybody has got that figured out yet. So it's still early stage. I like it. I think it's here for the long term. We actually do a lot of work in not cryptocurrency from the standpoint of trading or financial transactions, but we do a lot of work in Web3 technology, NFTs, crypto related stuff.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of good stuff about that technology, but it's still pretty early in the evolution of it.
Why did you get into crypto?
It's a good question. I think that I got into crypto personally just because I'm a big believer in being an active participant in anything that I'm interested in. Um, so I like the underlying technology, and there are a lot of other real world applications for blockchain technology that don't have anything to do with the cryptocurrency piece. And I wanted to see what it was about. So, and to be clear to you and everyone else, my level of investment in cryptocurrency is measured in thousands and ten thousands of dollars, not in hundreds of thousands or millions. I'm not a big mover. I'm a hobbyist, but it keeps my attention focused, and there's a lot of good stuff that I think is going to come out of that over the long term.
Hmm. Now, now, just to kind of jump back more to you, you
Sure.
kind of worked off a lot on this quote here, and it's called "Build something great from nothing." Why does that quote resonate with you so much?
I think that that's what most technology entrepreneurs can do. And we're hosting. We're the principal sponsor of a conference for what we call digital creators, and it includes content creators now. I think this is a really amazing thing. And unlike the steel mill example I gave, people with smart minds and visions and ambition can get into these kind of businesses for very, very little money compared to traditional, manufacturing kind of or retail businesses. And that's great. It unlocks and unleashes a lot of creativity. And so I just love the idea of creating something and seeing how far a team can push it. And there's a little bit of luck involved for some of the breakthroughs. Um, but it's not easy in the sense that anyone can do it, but the barrier to entry and the barrier to becoming an entrepreneur is a lot lower in tech and digital businesses, and I just think that's awesome. It just opens up a whole new economic world for people.
You just raised a very, very interesting point there. What do you mean by barrier?
Well, the example's a little absurd, but the steel mill example, um, you might have a fantastic idea about how to make steel better than anyone else, but if you can't get $100 million. I have no idea, by the way. I have no idea what it costs to open a steel mill, but let's say it's $100 million. Getting access to $100 million becomes a barrier for you. You can't start to make your idea real until you get that $100 million and you build the steel mill. If you know how to program or you teach yourself enough programming, if you have to go really low budget, and you have an idea for a mobile app, that was the last big wave of kind of cool, cheap, easy, fun entrepreneurship. If you had an idea and you released an app called Angry Birds, you did really, really well on a really small investment, and you didn't get nearly as dirty as you would building a steel mill. So when we talk about barriers to a business, we mean anything that's blocking you from having kind of this breakthrough opportunity. It could be you don't have access to capital, you have competitors that are far better financed than you, who knows what. But that's what I mean by barrier.
Okay. And speaking of software products or tech or anything, what are some kind of red flags that you see in a lot of kind of unsuccessful products?
Yeah. So we've written a white paper. We have a white paper on this on our website, and it's a general outline for how non-technical founders can build a technical business, build a product. And so we talk a lot about those red flags in there. But I think that the key thing people need to keep in mind is the first commercial release that you make should be super simple. Like I'm going to give you a real example. You and probably all of your listeners use Uber, and you open the Uber app, and Uber now will bring you food. You can order from a restaurant. They'll deliver stuff for you. I think, I don't know what all they do. Okay. But when Uber started, you opened the app and it had one button that said, I need a ride. And I was doing a lot of work in San Francisco at the time. That was that was their first market, really. And I remember how crazy cool it was that it did one thing. I had a choice. I could either call a taxi, or I could open my Uber app and click pick me up. And since I had already stored my credit card, when I got to where I was going, I just got out of the car, which was also really weird. I remember my first Uber ride because I was in San Francisco and they took me to the Gap. I was doing a lot of work, technology work for the Gap. And we got in front of their offices and I'm like, what? And I looked at the guy and I'm like, dude, do I pay you or anything? He's like, nope, just get out. And I'm like, that's crazy. So that sparked the virality of Uber. And literally, Jimbo, it only did that thing. You just pushed one button and it did that thing. So most entrepreneurs, going back to your question, the red flag on a product, entrepreneurs are too smart for their own good, me included. And what I mean by that is you're like, oh yeah, and we're going to deliver groceries and we're going to be, giving kids rides, and they think of all these features and it's too much. You have to hone in on what is the one killer cool thing that you're going to do to capture customers. Once you capture them with that really cool thing, you can keep adding more features and services in, but you have to get the first thing right. And that's what Uber did. They built on that fact that it was just drop dead simple to push the button and get a ride. So the red flag is when entrepreneurs engage us to help them build their product, we often start by getting all of the things out of their head, all of the things that this thing's going to do in the future. And everybody gets all excited because we're envisioning the future. And then we chop it all down to get that one thing and to get it out in the market. So the red flag is trying to go to market to be too many things to too many people and getting nothing, getting no hard lockup with your customer base.
Can you give a bit of a story maybe on the way you kind of applied these principles to one of the products you were designing?
Yeah, I can tell you a story that happened today. How about that? An hour ago.
Hey, sounds
Uh,
great.
One of our teams, I can't tell you who it is because we're
Yeah.
working on this product, but very engaged entrepreneur, very, very smart, big vision, big vision. Uh, and the team leader came in to see me. I would say he came into my office, but we don't have offices here. He came over to see me and he said, we got a problem. And I said, okay, what? And he said, it's gotten out of control. This thing is too complicated. It's got too many layers, too many options. We can't go to market like this. We need to basically take an axe and chop it all down back to the simplicity that we had for the original idea. Oh my God. Okay, crap. We wanted to ship this product in October. And I'm like, okay, how long is it going to take? And he's like, we don't know yet. But the team's going to work all weekend and we're going to work Monday and Tuesday nonstop. And but we have to reestablish a baseline and get back to the fundamental essence of what this product needs to be. It's a really hard decision and it's going to cost a bunch of money. But it's the right decision. So that's one example. I mean, and the team was right. The feature set had become too complex. And as everyone, client, us, everyone involved, had more ideas to add more things, the engineering got more complex. And so all of a sudden it's like, boy, not only are we trying to ship too much, but the complexity is too high. We're going to ship a lot of bugs and we need to step back and reset. I can't tell you it was a great decision to have to make, but the team made the right decision and we're just going to have to take whatever, we're going to have to eat it, right? We just have to own it. So it's funny that you ask a question about something that happened literally an hour ago, but but it happens. And that goes exactly to your question about, a red flag, too much complexity. Everything, usually, by the way, as a footnote, all of the things that were put in the product are good things. They're good features. It's not like they were wrong or nobody wants to use them. It's just too much too soon. And that's what we see the most common with entrepreneurs that want us to help them build their product is they get away from that really hard, really precise bullseye value proposition and they start covering up with a whole bunch of other junk.
All right. And it's kind of speaking more about software, what kind of advice would you give to sort of an ambitious entrepreneur looking for a software development partner who's very smart and technically able?
Yeah, good question. You have to, and this is going to sound a little strange, maybe. Don't focus on their skills or their competency as developers. You have to sort of assume that if someone tells you they know how to write software in JavaScript or they can build a mobile app, you have to just assume that they can, right? You're going to see some examples of their work and they're going to be able to do it. That's not where you get in trouble. I think the key thing that you look for is, do you sync up with the team that you're talking to? Like mentally, do you sync up? Do you have the same vibe? Do you want to work with these people every day? And can you work through tough situations like the one I just described? And so I think my advice would be to look for a cultural fit. That's the first thing. And then the second thing would be a work style fit. And so, for example, I told you in the intro that we work in the Americas. So our team is all in North America, Central America, or South America. And the reason for that is our customers, our clients are all in the United States and Canada. We have a few in Europe, but that's not very common. So what do you get into? You get into time zones. So we're 1 hour to 2 hours off of the Eastern time zone where most of our clients are. So the work style is nobody has to stay up late. Now, there are a lot of good software engineers in India, for example, and I've been to India a few times and I have friends in India. But from here, it's a 12-hour time difference. And so now, even if they're cool guys, and they are, somebody's staying awake because they're 12 hours out of sync on the clock. So either they're awake at midnight or I'm awake at midnight to make a noon meeting. And so the second thing behind a cultural fit is the work style. Does the team want to work in the style that you as the boss and the entrepreneur want to work? So those are the two things I look at more than technical skills.
Okay. And any notable software developers you've hired that you've clicked with very well?
Oh yeah, over the years, sure. I'm trying to think if anyone's ever really done a bad job. I don't think most people, I believe in the goodness of people. So I don't think that most people start out to do bad work or to have a disappointing outcome with what they do. So I don't think I've ever had any like raging disasters, but I've finished plenty of products where the work style didn't work or the teams didn't gel or whatever. And you get done and you're like, wow, that was real and that was fun, but it wasn't real fun. And I don't think I want to do that again. So, but I've worked with teams. I don't know the list by heart. I've worked with teams in Russia and Eastern Europe, India, Vietnam, South America, like all over the world. And it's been plenty of teams in the United States. I used to have hundreds of developers, thousands of developers that I worked with in the US. But even if you're in the same office, it kind of comes down to culture. Think about yourself as an entrepreneur. The people you hire, the people you want around you in your company are generally people that want to roll the way you do, because it just makes everybody, it unleashes everybody's extra energy if you're not fighting against things like time zones or work styles or cultural fit. So same thing applies when you're hiring an outside service provider or contractor in almost anything, really.
Okay.
I apply that to my clients too. I mean, we pick our clients based on one of my business colleagues asked me how I chose clients. And I said, we pick clients that we like. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, just that, we want to make sure that we like the client that we're working with, because we're going to spend a lot of time working with them and they're going to spend a lot of time with us. And so it's a two-way street. And, it doesn't always match up.
Okay. And I think what you said there kind of raises a lot of interesting questions in my head. First of all, we definitely need to get into South America a bit. Like, how did that begin?
Oh, you mean the being in Latin America in general, Central and South America?
Yeah, and the whole business.
Yeah, I mean, look, our belief is that there are brilliant people all over in the world. And, generally speaking, right now in the software engineering industry, people tend to think of India, Eastern Europe, used to be Russia, but unfortunately, political circumstances are what they are. And there are a lot of brilliant developers there too. But I was convinced, and I validated, that there are a lot of brilliant people here in the Americas, and it makes everything easier. So, like right now, I'm sitting in Honduras. We have 2 product studios in Honduras and Central America, And if I fly to Houston, Texas, the flight, it takes about 2 hours. If I get on another plane in Houston, Texas, and I want to fly to Los Angeles, it takes about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So Los Angeles is actually further away in the airplane, the same airplane than where I'm sitting in Central America. So for most Americans, they don't realize that the world is a lot smaller than we like to think from our America-centric position. I think here in Baltimore, for me to fly from Houston to Baltimore is probably closer to a 4-hour flight. And so you're further away from Houston than where I'm sitting right now. And I got down here a few years ago and I got to know people, and sure enough, there are a lot of brilliant people here. We have about 125 people working in the company now in Latin America. And I mean, it's just some real rock stars, to be honest with you. So I don't know, I guess my insight was I looked at a map. I don't know. Like, hey, why fly halfway around the world when I can just take a short hop across the border and find just as much talent? Doesn't take away from anyone that's in the other side of the globe. I just don't want to spend that many miles on an airplane anymore. Already done that. Didn't enjoy it.
Okay. Now, where do you see a lot of tech and enterprises sort of going in the future?
Tell me a little more about what are you thinking about? I don't quite understand your question.
Well, I think you mentioned kind of the idea that South America was sort of kind of a gold mine, at least, or America as a whole. So yeah. I'm thinking here, when we take that question, apply it to now, what do you think is the future? Do you think those areas may eventually be those next big places? Like, what do you think?
I hope so. I think so. Okay. But Jimbo, this is a little bit like asking a fisherman where his favorite place to fish is. He's like, well, I can't tell you because then you'll be there the next time I go fishing. So, but all kidding aside, I think Latin America is a great resource for U.S. entrepreneurs, and it's accessible. There's still a lot of work that Latin America needs to do to make it more accessible and more successful. Things like regulations and labor laws and, just taxes and a bunch of other stuff that are kind of economic development efforts. But they're making progress, but definitely the workforce is here. I mean, the internet has leveled the world. So we're seeing 25, 30, 35-year-old men and women that, I mean, they get it. They're digital natives. They know what the world is all about. They've got the technical skills. They speak great English. Language is not a barrier. So the labor market's here, but it feels to me a lot like the U.S. tech economy 20 or 25 years ago. So we need to get through some maturity steps to make it real. But there's definitely an opportunity here for people that want to come down and look for more brilliant minds.
Okay. And, I think as well, do you think in the future maybe you would be more of a mentor or pioneer for maybe some of these other entrepreneurs trying to get into the same industry you're getting into as well?
It's funny you asked the question. I'm actually already doing that. And the place, I can't take you and the crew outside to show you, but we're in a very modern office complex, 3 buildings, probably about 6,000 people work in this office complex, super safe, super modern. And the owners are building a new tower, Tower 4, and we're actually calling it the quote unquote tech tower. And we're, if people want to look up Altia Business Park in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, you'll see this. But our goal is starting in 2023 that we'll recruit other entrepreneurs who want to open an office here, and their office will be adjacent to the CODE Éxitos office. So we'll have some on the ground supervision capability for them. they can have us, work as a manager for them, or they can just do their own, and we'll help them out. So that's how bullish I am on it. I'm invested in this along with the real estate side, and I think it's awesome. Our headquarters is in Austin, Texas, and so we're going to be spending a lot of time talking to entrepreneurs in the Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas areas, just because the flight's so short. It's literally less time to get here than to get to Silicon Valley, and you have a great advantage on labor rates. I mean, labor here is a lot less expensive than it is in Austin, Texas, or Baltimore for that matter. And so if it's accessible and you've got brilliant people and they dig what you're doing and they can help you, yeah, for sure. And we're actually working on making that happen right now. So thanks for asking. I got to plug the commercial in there.
Okay. And as a software,
the other thing you asked about, sorry, Jimbo, you had asked about mentorship too. Yeah, I do a lot of mentoring, not only with our clients, but other people that, if they think I have something to add that's value, I'll try to do it if I'm able. So I love doing that kind of work. Go ahead. What was your other question?
No, well, what you raised kind of falls in a bit. So you're a software focused entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is sort of the best software that you've ever made, and why do you think it was?
I wasn't a founder of the company, but there's a company out in Silicon Valley called Turvo, TURV, is in Victor O, Turvo.com. And it's been bought by a very large, excellent multinational company. But Turvo was a transportation management system. It sounds kind of boring. It involved the trucking industry. But what was really cool about what we did was we took a very traditional blue collar industry, getting trucks, getting a truck from Baltimore to Houston, Texas with a load of, I don't know, whatever, right? A load of chickens, who knows? And that industry was, and it still struggles with it, but it was all about paper and literally fax machines. Jimbo, you probably don't even know what a fax machine looks like, but the trucking industry was still doing fax machines, and you'd call Marge in the office. It was horrible. And we took all of these modern digital communications tools and apps, and we pushed this all together, and we created this concept that we called collaborative logistics. Because when you move that truck of goods from Baltimore to Houston, a lot of people are involved in that process. So they have to work together, or you're just constantly repeating what the last guy said. And so our vision was around collaborative logistics. Let's take this supply chain and make it collaborative. And we did that in the software. And now I see more and more people in the software industry, in the transportation industry, mimicking that concept and agreeing. In essence, they agree commercially that we were right with the notion that we could take an old school industry and modernize it with all of the things that anyone who uses Google Docs would think most of what we did was like, they'd be like, duh. But for that industry, it wasn't just duh. It was like a lightning bolt, and it was really cool. So that's the one. I'm going to go with that one for now.
Okay. And you've also received a number of awards as well. Which one are you sort of most proud of?
I don't know if I can remember any of them.
The 40 under 40?
Oh yeah. Okay, like that stuff's nice. Public recognition is nice, but what's even nicer is I've tried my whole career, Jimbo, to never cancel anybody out. And and I'll give you a really specific example. There are any number of people that I've had to fire. Sorry to all of them. But I've had a lot of them that I've met later say, hey, you know what? I get it. I understood why you had to make that decision. I probably would have made the same decision. And can I tell you what I'm doing now? And and that's important to me. That's more important than any reward, because you go through the hardest time with somebody and you maintain their dignity as well as your own, having to separate. Doesn't always work, and I'm not 100%, that's for sure. But yeah, I used to know the number. I've forgotten about how many people, in a little less gruesome example, how many people had been on my teams that went on to be senior executives or even CEOs of their own company. And that's a very rewarding thing when you bump into somebody 15 years later and they're like, hey, man, you really helped me out. Remember that time you kicked me in the butt and told me that I had to shape up? And I'm usually like, no, but go ahead. And you're like, you were right. And I did it. Now I own my own company. And that's great. I tell a lot of stories. And the last thing that's a reward or an award for me is when somebody says, remember that thing you used to tell me? I tell my guys that all the time now. And so that's kind of my personal satisfaction comes from those kind of things. The 40 under 40 was cool. And hopefully it inspired somebody else. But for me, the plaque is long since gone. Whatever.
That's an interesting kind of perspective. So you think your growth has sort of motivated the growth of other people as well?
I can't say that it has or it hasn't, but
It sounds like it
always
has.
I always hope that it does. I mean, look, I grew up on a farm in Ohio. My dad's a farmer to this day. I mean, he's a retired farmer, but he's 82 years old, and I grew up on a farm. I mean, there's no rich kid thing here. You know, I heck, I've worked for. I started keeping a timesheet and got paid by the hour when I was 12 years old. That's not like boohoo for me, but that's just my life. And so um, I'm not a billionaire, Elon Musk kind of person either, but I'm 58 years old and I've taken care of my family and I've been able to help people out and I've had a ton of fun. It's just, my life's been a blast. And so anyone can do it. It's not always going to be easy. And sometimes people just need a reference. They need to look at some wacky guy like me and say, look, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And I think that's true. So maybe that's as far as my inspiration goes, but I'm always interested in hearing people's story and sharing some of mine. And if they get some value out of it, so much the better.
Okay. Excellent. And kind of now jumping back to entrepreneurship here.
Yeah.
Would you sort of say kind of these enterprise applications are kind of a good thing in society now, especially during like the pandemic times?
What do you mean by enterprise applications? I want to understand a little better.
So kind of applications that are focused on a large scale theme. So like think applications run by large corporations. So things like Instagram, anything run by Meta, those types of things.
Yeah. Wow, that's a whole other show right there. Generally, no. I think let me try to put some context around this. I think it started out as the right idea, and it's turned into something that no one expected, and we don't know how to undo it. So let's take Meta and let's take Google as examples. They're not free, and they've never been free. But the way, I guess I believe very much what Tim Cook at Apple says. They monetize their users. And I think users have to be aware, and we're not. We kind of sleepwalk through it. We click the I accept the user agreement, I accept, because I'm so interested in setting up my account. We're going to have to back that up. Things like algorithms that use our data, manipulate our data, force advertising into us. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's healthy, and we collectively, users and the platform owners, we've painted ourselves into a corner in that Meta certainly has no motivation to change their business model of monetizing your data and mine. They have billions and billions of reasons not to change it. It's working. It's easy to pick on Facebook, but there are other examples of it. But it's creepy to me. It's really creepy. You and I have chosen to make this a public conversation, and we did that willingly. And so we bear the consequences of what happens when people see this and what their opinion is and what they may say about what I've said. And I accept that. But for young kids to be on a social media platform and acting like young kids, I mean, thank God that there wasn't any observer state like that when I was a young kid, because it's horrible. And, I think that the technology has outstripped human behavior, and we're going to have to take a step back and look at it and go, wait a minute, there has to be a better way. So that's my negativity on all of that just unchecked behavior that we see in those enterprise platforms, as you mentioned.
Do you think sort of software developer entrepreneurs have a code of ethics? Sort of, do you all have kind of an underlying code in a lot of this, or?
I think every one of us carries an individual code of ethics. I'm a big believer in individual responsibility and individual freedom. A very, very libertarian view of that. And again, as I said earlier, I believe in people's fundamental goodness, but sometimes it's hard to see the seminal moment where something went from being a good thing to being a bad thing. It may take years to look back and say, wow, that was the moment we stepped across the line that we shouldn't have stepped across. So, but I think developers and engineers and product managers and all entrepreneurs, for that matter, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg started out to manipulate teenagers' feelings of self-worth. I just don't think he did that. I think that this flow of consequences is like it's really kind of an oh shit moment. I would like to believe that. I don't think there was any evil intent from the beginning. So the question isn't whether maybe they're right or wrong, but the better question is, what are we going to do to change it, and what alternatives are maybe more viable? And it'll sort itself out. It'll self-correct.
Great.
I don't know if I answered your question. We're really into the philosophical realm now, though, and I love the way you're thinking about it. But yeah, I think we've overshot the mark, Jimbo. That's it. It started out like a good idea, and now all of a sudden we're looking at it going, wow, this isn't really working out the way we would have liked. So now we got to fix it.
Excellent. And kind of to ask you now, kind of about your business and maybe sort of the industry that you're in as a whole. What's sort of the next step or the future for you?
For us, so I have a stated goal to make CODE Éxitos last 100 years. And I'm not going to be around for 100 years. And what's a real mind bender, and you can work on this, and your listeners can work on this on their own. If you start thinking about the actions that you're doing today and what consequences will they have 100 years from now, it's pretty profound, because you realize all of a sudden that, let's say, I was just talking to one of our engineering managers. He's a brilliant young man. He's got a great future ahead of him. He's 30 years old. He's not going to be here in 100 years either. So I can't just say, hey, you take the company now, I'm going to go off into the sunset. He still has to think about it being a 100-year company, because he isn't going to want to hang around or even be able to hang around. So then he's like, holy cow. Now he has to look around and say, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to blow it, right? You don't want to be the guy that gets to year 99 and flakes. So we're obsessed with this 100-year concept, and how do we build this in so that we're always building global skills in the digital world for the next 100 years. That's our personal view of what we want to do with CODE Éxitos.
Well,
The industry at large. Go ahead, Jimbo.
No, I was just commenting on what you're saying. I think that's a really powerful vision and kind of a message. And I think a lot of sort of the team in your business may think about that and push for that strategy. And what I was about to say kind of quickly was, how do you think kind of other business owners can build kind of that motto or mission as strong as the one you've made?
Well, it's a very personal choice, and then it becomes part of your. So here's maybe the way to think about it, or at least the way I think about it. Entrepreneurship is a personal endeavor. It's driven by one or a very small group of people. It could be Mark Zuckerberg, it could be Charles Fry, it could be Jimbo Paris. But so you have to be. You hope that entrepreneur is very well grounded and consistent in their own personal beliefs and their own perspective, because that's really the only thing. You can only be authentic in your business. If you try to run a business with different values than you, then you've got this built-in stress mechanism, and it's no fun for anybody. So now you take the entrepreneur's personality, if you will, and when you take someone's personality and you build it into an organization, that's what we call culture. That becomes the business, that becomes the company's culture. And we've seen over the last few years some of the proverbial bad boy behavior in Silicon Valley, where, the entrepreneur's personality and behavior wasn't so upright, let's say, and then it flowed into the company culture. They were, disrespectful of women and minorities, or they were bad stewards of investors' money, or a lot of bad consequences. So I would say that a company's culture is a derivative of the founder's personality, and that's a big responsibility that every entrepreneur takes on. So in my case, and where I am at this stage in my life, the idea of challenging myself and the business to create 100-year runway for the company, it might not fit every other entrepreneur. It may not be their thing. Their thing might be, I want to build this thing up and make it a public company, or I want to build it up and sell it, or I want to build it up and start my own television station. And those are all honorable, and they're all equally good from a value standpoint. But the personality that people have as entrepreneurs flows into their company culture. I just believe that. So I would say it's less about picking the values that I have and trying to make them part of your company. And it's more about working on yourself to be very authentic about what you believe, because you're going to communicate that into your company as you grow it.
And again, just to kind of summarize, this has been a very good interview. And again, thank you again. Okay.
You're a great host. I mean, your questions are fantastic. So I enjoyed it.
But I have one last question for you. So kind of,
lay it on me.
Do you kind of have any final words you like to give to the audience? Maybe final pieces of advice and any tokens?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I have one thing I'd like to share with people. It's very common for people when they meet every day to say, hey, how are you? Right? Jimbo, how are you? You hear that 100 times, the checkout clerk at the grocery store. And I started thinking about this a long time ago, and I did my own little social experiment. You probably accidentally have seen this, where you say something and the person answers and you realize they didn't even listen to what you were saying. They just automatically say, "How are you? Have a great day." And they don't really mean it. So when somebody says, "Hey, Charles, how are you today?" I always say the same thing. It's the best day of my life. And I want you to test this, Jimbo. I want you to do it. I want your listeners to do it. The girl at the store, at the grocery store, when she's ringing it up, she says, "Hey, how are you today?" And you say, "It's the best day of my life." The odds are she's going to say, "Really? What happened? Did you like win the lottery or whatever?" And you're like, "No, but yesterday's gone and I can't change it. And I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So today when I woke up, I'm going to make this the best day of my life." Jimbo, I can't tell you how many awesome conversations have flowed out from that simple response. And people get it and they make it their own. And that's an exciting thing. So the secret is it doesn't always work out. In fact, more times than not, at the end of the day, I go, well, that really did become the best day of my life, but I've got tomorrow. And so for every entrepreneur and every listener, that's my parting thought. Tomorrow or later today, when somebody asks you, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Even if you don't feel like saying it, even if it feels phony, I want you to force yourself to say, "It's the best day of my life." And someday it just might be.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, man. We'll see you.
So just to end this off here,
Yep.
a few quick sponsor shout outs here. So special sponsor, Judy Ryan, CEO of LifeWork Systems, here to improve sort of the business infrastructure and give you pointers on what to do. Then next thing we got to shout out here is our YouTube channel. Subscribe now. And additionally, we have a Roku channel. This will be on Roku as well as all of our other episodes. And then the last thing, we also have our new service-based business, Jimbo Paris Services, where we provide services such as editing videos, making content, and also helping you find guests for your podcast too. So check that out later as well. All right. I'm Jimbo Paris. This is the Jimbo Paris Show.
Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.